Let me ask you something. At the end of every month, do you sit down, look at your bank account, and think, where did it all go? Like, you're not living lavishly, you're not taking vacations to the Maldives, you're not popping bottles at the club every weekend, you're just living. Normal life. Groceries, gas, Netflix, maybe a dinner out here and there. And somehow, there's almost nothing left. You did the math when you got your paycheck, you were supposed to have a few $100 left over this month, but the account says otherwise. That's not a budgeting problem. That's not a discipline problem. That is a single recurring expense quietly bleeding you out every single month, and most people have absolutely no idea it's doing it. There is one category of spending that statistically separates people who end up wealthy from people who end up broke. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what it is, what it costs you over a lifetime, and the 3 specific steps to fix it, starting this week. My name is Parker, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of everyday spending. If you're someone who makes decent money, does most things right, but still can't seem to get ahead financially no matter how hard you try, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. All right, let's get into it. Here's the thing. When most people think about why they're not building wealth, they jump straight to the obvious stuff. I need to make more money. I should stop eating out so much. Maybe I need to cut back on subscriptions. And look, those things matter, but they're not the core issue. The average American household spends about $166 a month on dining out, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's real money, sure, but that's not what's wrecking people's finances. The average household also spends around $85 a month on streaming and subscription services combined. Again, not ideal, but also not the reason you can't build wealth. Here's what most people don't realize. The expense destroying your financial future isn't the one that feels extravagant, it's the one that feels completely normal. It's your transportation. Specifically, your car payment. Now, before you click off, hear me out, because I know what you're thinking. Parker, a car is a necessity. I need to get to work. This is ridiculous. And you're right. A car is a necessity for most people in this country, but the way most Americans pay for that car, that is a choice, and it is the single most financially destructive choice the average person makes on a monthly basis. And the number that keeps coming up when you look at the data is $800. Let me show you exactly where this number comes from. According to Experian's 2024 State of the Automotive Finance Market Report, the average new car payment in the United States hits $738 per month. That's just the loan payment. That is not insurance, that is not gas, that is not maintenance and registration. When you add the average full coverage insurance premium, which, according to Bankrate, now averages around $204 per month for a new vehicle, you're already at $942 a month just to have and insure the thing. Gas adds another $150 to $200 depending on where you live, but let's be conservative. Let's say you're paying $738 on the loan, $150 on insurance, and maybe you bought something relatively fuel efficient. You're still sitting at $900 to $1,000 per month minimum just in transportation costs. Now, some people are lower than that. Maybe you got a deal, maybe your insurance rate is good, you drive a used car. Fine. We'll call it $800 as the threshold that keeps coming up in financial research, separating households that accumulate wealth versus those that don't. The households spending $800 or more per month on transportation, statistically, they are not building wealth, almost regardless of income.
The households keeping that number under $400, completely different financial trajectory. Same income, completely different outcome. This is where it gets really interesting and a little uncomfortable. Let's do the math together, because I think most people have genuinely never sat down and run these numbers. Take a 28-year-old. They finance a $45,000 vehicle, which is right around the current average transaction price for a new car in the US, by the way. They put $3,000 down, finance the rest over 72 months at 7.5% interest, which is roughly the current average rate for a new vehicle loan. Their monthly payment? $738. Over 72 months, they will pay approximately $53,136 for a car they financed at $42,000. That's over $11,000 in interest, just gone. But here's where it really hurts. At 28, that $738 per month could be invested instead. If you invested $738 a month from age 28 to age 65, 37 years, in a broad index fund averaging 8% annual returns, you would have $2.1 million from one car payment. Now, obviously, you still need a car. I'm not suggesting you don't have transportation costs at all, but if you drove a reliable used car and spent $350 a month total on your vehicle instead of $900, that's a $550 difference per month. Over 37 years at 8%, that gap alone is worth $1.5 million at retirement. $1.5 million. Not from skipping lattes, not from canceling Spotify, from simply choosing a different vehicle strategy. Okay, so if the math is this obvious, why does almost everyone keep buying cars they can't afford? Why is the average car payment nearly $750 a month when most financial advisors say your total transportation costs shouldn't exceed 10 to 15% of your take-home pay? For someone making $60,000 a year, which is right around the US median, 15% of take-home pay is about $600 a month total for a car payment, insurance, gas, and maintenance combined. But the average person making $60,000 a year is spending closer to $900 to $1,000 a month on transportation. That's not math illiteracy. That is psychology. Here's the thing about cars specifically. They're the only major purchase in most people's lives that is evaluated almost entirely on monthly payment, not total cost. When you buy a house, you think about what the home is worth, what you're building in equity, what the neighborhood looks like in 10 years. When you buy a car, the dealership asks you one question: what's your monthly budget? And the moment you answer that question, let's say you say $600 a month, they don't sell you a car that costs what $600 a month buys. They stretch the loan to 84 months, roll in fees and add-ons, and sell you a car that costs $52,000. Because at 84 months, that fits your $600 number. You walked in thinking $600 a month was responsible. You drove out with a $52,000 liability that will be worth $28,000 in 3 years. The dealership didn't trick you exactly. They just reframed the entire purchase around the one number that felt manageable in the moment, and we fell for it because our brains are wired to think in monthly terms, not lifetime terms. This is called payment thinking, and it is financially lethal. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Parker, but everyone around me drives a nice car. My coworkers, my neighbors, my friends. If I show up in a beat-up Honda, what does that say about me? I want to address this directly because it's real and it matters. There's a well-documented concept in behavioral economics called relative consumption, the idea that we don't evaluate our spending in absolute terms, we evaluate it relative to our peer group. We don't ask, can I afford this? We ask, is this what people like me buy? And here's the brutal truth. Most of your neighbors and coworkers with the nice cars are also living paycheck to paycheck. A Federal Reserve study found that 37% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. Many of those same people are driving $50,000 trucks.
The appearance of wealth and actual wealth are not the same. In most cases, they move in opposite directions. The person optimizing for how their car makes them look is usually doing so at the direct expense of their actual net worth. There's a line in The Millionaire Next Door, one of the most data-heavy books ever written on actual wealthy Americans, that stuck with me. The research found that most millionaires drive used or modestly priced vehicles, bought with cash, and that the strongest correlating factor with high net worth was not income, but the gap between income and spending. The wealth is in the gap. All right, enough of the problem. Let's talk about the fix, because this is actually very actionable. Step 1. Calculate your real transportation number, not just your car payment, the full number. Right now, I want you to add up your monthly car payment, your insurance, your average monthly gas spend, and then take your annual maintenance and registration costs and divide by 12. That is your real monthly transportation cost. For most people watching this, that number is going to be somewhere between $800 and $1,400 a month. And seeing that full number, not just the payment, is genuinely shocking for most people the first time they do it. Write it down. You need to confront the actual number before any of this gets better. Step 2. Apply the 10-4 rule, not the 20%. You've probably heard the advice to keep your car payment under 20% of your take-home pay. I want to push back on that. 20% of take-home pay on a car payment alone is still way too high for most people trying to build wealth. That doesn't account for insurance, gas, or maintenance. The rule I'd suggest is this: your total transportation budget, everything, should be no more than 10% of your take-home pay, and your car payment alone, aim for no more than 4%. For someone taking home $4,500 a month, total transportation under $450, car payment alone under $180. Does that seem impossibly low compared to where you are right now? It might, but it's important to know what the wealth-building target actually is, even if you close the gap over time rather than overnight. Step 3. Your next vehicle. Use the 1-year-old rule. Here's the most practical advice I can give you. The single best vehicle purchase strategy for building wealth is buying a 1 to 3-year-old used car in cash or with the smallest loan possible. A new car loses roughly 20% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot, according to Carfax data. In the first 3 years, most vehicles lose 40 to 50% of their original value. That depreciation is someone else's problem if you buy used. A 1-year-old version of the same car you were going to buy new costs 15 to 25% less, has most of the same features, is still covered by a significant portion of the manufacturer's warranty in most cases, and performs identically. The person who bought it new and traded it in after a year, they paid the depreciation tax, so you don't have to. You don't have to give up reliability or comfort. You give up newness. And newness, financially speaking, is the most expensive thing you will ever buy. Here's what I want you to sit with for a second. We live in a culture that has completely normalized the idea of a $700, $800, $900 monthly car payment. Dealerships advertise on monthly payment. Manufacturers celebrate record transaction prices. And we've all kind of just accepted it as the way things work. But it's not the way things have to work for you. Every dollar you redirect from a depreciating vehicle into an index fund is a dollar working for you around the clock. Your car doesn't compound, your investments do. The math on this is not subtle. Over a 30-year working life, the difference between a $900 a month transportation habit and a $350 a month transportation habit, assuming the difference is invested, is literally life-changing money. We're talking the difference between retiring comfortably at 60 and working until 70 because you had to.
I want to be clear. I'm not telling you to drive a rust bucket. I'm not saying you can't have a nice car someday. What I'm saying is that the timing and method of how you buy that car matters more than almost any other financial decision you'll make. Buy the nice car after you've built the wealth, not before. Not as the reason you can't build the wealth. The wealthiest people I've ever studied don't deprive themselves permanently. They defer gratification strategically. They build the foundation first, and then they enjoy it from a position of actual security, not one paycheck away from disaster in a $60,000 truck. Look, if you're sitting there right now with a car payment that's eating you alive, you're not alone, and you're not stupid. The system is genuinely designed to get you there. The financing, the monthly payment framing, the way dealerships are set up, all of it pushes you toward the most expensive option. It takes deliberate effort to push back against it. But here's the thing. You now have something most people don't: clarity on the number that matters. You know the $800 threshold. You know the real math. You know exactly what it's costing you in long-term wealth. That knowledge is worth something, but only if you do something with it. So here's your homework. Do the 3 things I laid out. 1. Calculate your real total monthly transportation cost today. Not the payment, the whole thing. 2. Compare it to the 10-4 rule and figure out what your actual target should be. 3. Make a plan for your next vehicle purchase. Even if your current car isn't going anywhere soon, start thinking about what a different strategy looks like. The gap between where you are and where you want to be financially, for a lot of you, this is it. This is the thing. Not your coffee habit, not your subscriptions, this. And once you fix it, once you redirect that $400, $500, $600 a month towards something that actually grows, everything changes. Your net worth starts moving. Your financial anxiety starts dropping. You start actually building something instead of just surviving the month. That's what this channel is about. Real numbers, real strategies, practical stuff you can actually use. If this video helped you, drop a comment below telling me what your actual transportation number came out to. I read every single one, and honestly, it'll help other people watching to see real numbers from real people. Hit subscribe if you're not already, because we drop videos like this every week. And I'll see you in the next one.